Good afternoon. I don't know about you, but it's certainly a warm day here in Sydney, Australia. Cathar Love number 91, moving towards 100. Cathar Sacred Secrets. There's certainly many books, probably 3 or 4 a year, being put out about the Cathars. And these are people who've read up on the Cathars, know the varying amounts of their history, and feel they have something new to say about the Cathars, and quite often they do. But invariably it's of an historical, based on historical evidence, and which is fine. But there's very few, and those that do only briefly touch on the actual beliefs of a Cathar, the way a Cathar thought, what was their the purpose of Catharism, what secrets did they have that was different and made them different to, well, at that time there was basically only the Catholic Church. There was a few other groups that were similar to the Cathars, heretical groups, the Waldensians, who were persecuted even worse than the Cathars by the church. So today I wish to give some information on my knowledge, which I've acquired through guidance and what have you, secretive knowledge. And it's not so much meant to be secret, but it just happens to be because so very few people know about it. And it's not secret in the fact that it is meant to be hidden. But there are many things which people know about the cross. For instance, I have a YouTube's out, and previously the Cathars' disdain of the cross is one, and it's how the Cathars mocked the Christian or the Catholic's church, their adoration of the cross on which Christ was supposedly or apparently crucified. Their point was that if you had a dagger that killed your father, or a rope that hung your mother, or in these days a pistol that blew someone's brains out, your parents' brains out, would you worship those things? Of course not. Well, why do you worship a cross? The cross was one of the most abhorrent forms of killing anybody that existed, and the Romans put it to good use. But they only put it to use for treason. It's well known that the Cathars weren't into marriage. If you're married, that's fine. If you weren't, that's fine too. The only thing that mattered with the Cathars was the people you're with and the quality of the relationship that you have with those people, male, female, male, female, whatever it happens to be. So they were interested in the quality in the depth of your feelings. We all know about Cathars and how they wanted to spread love, simply love, but unconditional love, or probably another way of putting it, undifferentiated love. In other words, you make no difference between anybody, whether they've got Catholic or Buddhist or no religion at all. It didn't matter. You respected and gave tolerance to everybody and did what you could to love people and be loving to people. But it was a mutual, the whole idea is to have a mutual love affair, so that you gave it, but you also received love back. And they also believed that if there's ever going to be peace on the world and peace amongst mankind and womankind, it's through love and basically teaching love. Well, these days you'd say, let's teach ethics, or how we behave towards our fellow human beings and the planet and the flora and the fauna of the planet, and we teach ethics. And I think there's a far better way to teach than religion, because unfortunately with religions, there's always this hate comes into it somewhere, or one way or another, hate tends to manifest itself in practical terms. These things are common knowledge. They were against baptism. A child can't even spell the word and you're baptizing him. And also the Cathars at that time were Christian because they regarded themselves as primitive Christians. And in other words, they were only interested in a few of the Gospels, Thomas and John, but they were interested in the message of love coming from Christ. That was all they're interested in. Now, the Cathars didn't even want to form a new religion. They just evolved, and that's where they were. But they were decidedly, undisputedly against doctrine. That is, the Quran, the Bible, the Mao's Red Book, anything where rules and laws are set down, and this is the truth, and it's set down in writing and it's stuck, it's cemented. Because this is what doctrine tends to be. It gets cemented, and this is what you believe, and this is the way you go, and you can't go any other way. The Cathars wanted knowledge. They wanted science. They were interested into what actually happened. And the other thing was that the basic theological, philosophical difference with the Cathars as against religions generally is that they weren't interested in outward appearances. Churches, rituals, what you wore, what you didn't wear. They weren't interested in that. They were interested in going inwards, going into yourself, understanding yourself, gaining inner understanding. As Henri de Boers says, the Cathars tried to educate one another, this is the perfecti, not the common people, to turn inwards to the light, to meditate and go inwards to the light. The light meaning the source, not God, because you have this God, and that's the religious have this God. He's a little, well, who knows? Everyone's got their idea of a God, usually a little old man, and he's very wise and this and that, and he's God the Father and so forth. The Cathar said if there's such a God, this is the God who made the universes we have, but he's a lesser God, and some of them didn't even think too much of this particular God. Theirs was the source. The Cathar God, if you want to call him a God, but they didn't, was called the source, the origin of all things, which Socrates and Plato said there has to be, rather than all the Greek gods, he said there has to be an origin, there has to be one, there has to be a beginning. Nothing comes from nothing. There had to be the origin, the source. So they called it the source. Lao Tzu in China, he said it's unknown, but there had to be a beginning. From one there was two, from two there was three, from three everything took off. So he said it's nameless, it's unknown, so we call it Tao. It's a way, it's a process. So his name was putting it as the Tao. So, and interesting enough, they were both about 500 BC that both people that came to these conclusions. So, but if there was a Cathar secret that was difficult to explain to the common people, was that, as also goes back to Socrates and Plato also had a similar idea, that quite apart from our soul, we have within us a divine spark. Now this is really Cathar's secret knowledge. We have a divine spark. Now what is our divine spark? Our divine spark, we have a body, a mind, a soul, but we also have a divine spark. And the divine spark is our essential. It's our innermost being, our innermost core, our unique essence, beyond the soul. And it is this divine spark, this innermost core, which yearns to be reunited with the source, from whence it was created, once created. This is very, very much at the heart the very heart of Catharism. Apart from that, and obtaining that, the rest didn't really matter too much. But the process of obtaining that, of going through that, meant that at some point in time we had to become enlightened and perfect our lives sufficiently enough that we had this undifferentiated, universal, unconditional love for everybody and everything. Because although the source is unknown, this is the Cathar God or the Gnostic God, what we do know was that it is the source of love. Even people who go into deep hypnosis and these days, and under that hypnosis that they in the world of spirit, and they talk about it, each of them, in every case, they refer to the, rather than God, they refer to the Creator as the source, and over again they just say you can sense this love, this deep love that the source has for them. So the Cathars were really trying to emulate in their, as best they could in the human fashion, that unconditional love, that undifferentiated love coming from the source. This is the essence. So, and we can say it's not information that the Cathars gave out to the masses, to the credenti. Another factor that the Cathars were well aware of, and this is through meditation, through reincarnation, through guidance, had an instruction from their guidance, was there is no judgment in life. You do something, you're a good boy, you're a bad boy, the police, the state, we have our rules, our laws, and we expect if you do something wrong, you're going to be judged and one way or the other punished. But to the Cathars, there is no judgment, there's no day of judgment, and there's no salvation to the soul, because your soul doesn't need to be saved, because ultimately every divine spark will eventually be reunited with the source, with the Creator. Regards this, a Cathar secret is that nobody, no one who's created, not you, not me, not him, not they, not them, can in any way be a mass murderer. Whatever. Be a Hitler or a Stalin. No one, nobody has a capacity to sin against the source. So, whether you're good, because we all have the capacity, for creation, we have the capacity to be the best, and we have the capacity to be the worst. And some people are the best and some people are the worst. But we both have the capacity. We have a capacity to be whatever. We all have this capacity within us. And this is how we were created. So we are just being ourselves, even when we're being pretty nasty or even when we're being good. So what we're going through is a process, and that process takes time with reincarnation. Time is relevant to us in our human environment, the world as we know it, but it is not relevant in the world of spirit. The other thing is that, and it's very hard for most people to get their head around, but the Cathars were very, very well aware of this, that we are in a process of being reincarnated. Now this is not you, lots of groups within the world believe within reincarnation. So we are out on a journey to perfect ourselves. Now the Cathar secret about this is the journey is more important than the destination. Well, we're going somewhere. We ultimately expect to arrive wherever we're heading for. But to the Cathars, the journey is more important than the destination, for the simple reason is the journey is eternal. From the point of creation, we are immortal. But there's no hell and there's no heaven to go to. We are on this continuous journey of enlightenment, of perfecting ourselves. Now, sometimes the journey is, with us, is here on this planet Earth. Others, it's aliens or whatever, and they're wherever they are in the interplanetary cosmos. Now, our world is 3.5 billion years old. We've been floating around, modern man, what for say, or whatever, the last million or so. And we've evolved over the last 7 or 8, 9, 10,000 from being hunter-gatherers. Within that particular time, for those who were created, we've already had quite a number of lifetimes. That's fine. Most people can understand that. Now, but just imagine in 50 million years' time, not 50 million years' time, 50 billion years' time, you and I and he and she and him will still be there, still going on, still being reincarnated, still having our lives in other planets. This planet will be long gone. It'll be dead, dark and cold. This beautiful planet Earth would have just another dead sphere floating around the cosmos. But we're still there. We're still going and we're still perfecting ourselves because this journey is never ending. Now, from that, hopefully, we may have even evolved to the point where we don't need to have planetary existences, and we're now in the world of spirit. But even in the world of spirit, we have our basic personality, our divine spark, and that is still perfecting itself and growing and always becoming closer to the source and ultimately being reunited with the source. But even then, it goes on. Now, the other thing is, we go, there's 50 million, 50 million, 50 billion, that's a big thing. But I'm talking about world time, time as we know it. But in the world of spirit, time is timeless. There's no time. It's simply now. Even for us here today, there is simply now. All we ever have from that moment of creation is now. Our consciousness only ever has this now. And so we have this stream of consciousness which is always going through now. So we always have now. So in a billion years' time or a million years' time, we've still got this present moment, which we have, you and I at the moment. I'm chatting, you're listening, but it's this now. And then there's now, because now is simply all there ever is. These things are somewhat tricky to get one's mind around, but the Cathars had actually sat down and through their meditation, through their turning inwards, through their guidance, they had this knowledge. Someone said, if the Cathars had this knowledge, why did they allow themselves to get wiped out by the Inquisition? Why didn't the source step in and save them? Well, the plain fact is the source simply does not get in the way of the process of us on our journey to perfect ourselves, because the more we go through this, the closer we get to him. And the plain fact is that for them to get wiped out, but they're returning now, this on the overall scheme of things is just a minor glitch. So, and that is the way to look at it. So, condensing that, the secret that made the Cathars different to the theologies of the time and even at the present is the fact that they have this divine spark, which we have. And the other thing is that sometimes, possibly most of us, maybe all of us, go through those periods when we just feel lost, as if there's nothing there. You know, we've got a nice house, a home, we've got this, we've got that, and yet we've got this empty feeling. Now, I'll give you a Cathar secret. The Cathar understood this, and what they understood by it was this periods of just feeling lost and depressed or just not with things. This is really a period. It is your divine spark yearning to be reunited with the source, and every so often this yearning, that deep down yearning and it's just feelings deep within us that we just can't understand, but we just know there's something there, but we can't put our finger on it. To the Cathars, this was your divine spark. This period was a manifestation of your divine spark and this desperate yearning to be reunited with the source, which ultimately will be. But it's a happy journey because there's no salvation, but there's no damnation. Everybody will ultimately will be reunited, and nobody at any time is judged. The only people who do any judging is you, because even in the world of spirit, after you die, you know how you conducted your life. You know how and in which way you should, your next lifetime, how you can go about it to improve and eventually stay on with the journey of perfection, enlightenment. And the point is about this perfection and enlightenment. The good thing is that I think the Indians put it as there's no bhukti without mukti, no mukti without bhukti. There's no enlightenment without joy. So if you're getting something and you go, oh yeah, that's interesting, and that doesn't take a load off you, if that doesn't make you feel lighter, if that doesn't make you feel good about yourself or better about yourself, then it's not enlightenment. It might, no matter what it is. So, you know, life with the singing and dancing and all the things, the joys of life and the highs and the lows of life, this is it. We need to celebrate life. It is a gift. So I hope that's giving a little bit of some of the things that are not normally talked about by other theologies and that were secretive or known to Cathars, that was known to the Cathars, and these are some of the Cathar beliefs that are, or we'd have to call them, sacred secrets. Okay, bye for now. Talk to you again. Bye.